What's going on, guys? Jim here from Clockwerk Industries. Welcome back to another Clockwerk gaming video for Diablo Immortal. So this is going to be a rundown of basically my entire armory right now, all the builds I'm using, what I'm using them for, and I kind of wanted to just do a little finale build video for the monk because we started our new clan. Just a bunch of our buddies from the warband and a couple other people coming in that we know, and we're just kind of building a casual clan of all of our friends. And right now it's basically with D4 around the corner. We got Server Slam this weekend, and we got the launch in a few weeks. A lot of us are going to be playing D4 as well, so we just kind of wanted to do our own thing, and I figured this is a good time, and a couple other people are as well, to switch through a bunch of different classes and farm up essences. So I'm going to be switching over to Crusader when I go live here in like an hour, and I figured I'd do one last rundown of all the builds that I've been using most frequently, and a couple little ideas of modifying them and different setups before I switch over to Crusader, start farming the essences with that class, and I will do some build videos with that class as well. I'll take advantage of pretty much each class as I switch. Depending on when the Blood Knight drops, I'll probably go Crusader until the Blood Knight and then switch over to that, do the same thing, and then it depends if Blood Knight is intellect or strength, like the direction I go from there. Hopefully it's a strength class because that's what all my stuff is set up as, but we'll see what happens. So the first one I'm going to go through is the one I've been doing for PvP for the last, I don't even know, before Shimmerlin got nerfed. I dropped Shimmerlin and started running this build. It has more dashes and more mobility. We have the stun circle helm. We have the sanctuary buff chest. We have the new shoulders with the primary attack speed from Mystic Strike. We have the long range Mystic Strike with the knockback, and the teleport shield is Zen, and sanctuary duration. So this is kind of my support build. I feel like it helps the battle the most being at my resonance and power level. I'm able to still put out some damage on people around my power level and even some stronger, and also run the stun circle with the support and help slow down the idol or slow down defense from letting us push the idol. It's worked out very well. It's been tough to really put up super great numbers, but I have got quite a few MVPs with this build before I server transferred and lost deeds, so we're working on getting those back soon. I should be getting another deed here in the next couple weeks. We already got one, so we're at 10% right now. And then a lot of our clan is going to be doing the 12% deeds each reign as well, since we don't plan on going for Immortal or anything like that. But it's been a strong build, especially once you get used to using it. You're basically using Fist of Thunder, Stun Circle. Shield of Zen is mostly used for getting out of the shit and healing up. And you got Kick and Mystic Strike. Kick is just a floater. You could probably use Flying Dragon if you wanted to. I just like having more mobility and more dashes. And Kick does some decent damage too. So if you catch a good crit with a Kick, you can drop some people with that one. I was actually using the old Mystic Strike shoulders before this and buffing my Kick damage, and that was working pretty well also. Still running 4-set Gloom, 2-set Urge. I actually run this setup for every one of these builds that I run. So whether it's my dungeon build, my raid build, challenge rift build, or PvP build, they all run the same 4-set Gloom, 2-set Urge. It all works well together. Sometimes Urge buff might help in other ways. Sometimes it might not do that all that much, but it helps keep up like your gem buffs, helps keep up the shoulder buff. It's nice to have that extra 30% beneficial effect duration. So this build is let me switch over to it because I'm in the other one right now. Yeah, this build is just basically Mystic Striking in, dropping your stun circle, maybe getting a kick or two. What's really nice about Kick is the knockback, where you can kick people into the stun circle or kick them off the idol. Mystic Strike is great for dropping in and doing damage, or dropping in, knocking back, getting your stun circle down, and then teleporting out with like Shield of Zen if you can, or using Shield of Zen to like get around some ground damage like Frost Scorch or something like that, or another stun circle. I don't know. You can give this build a shot. It's a lot of fun. This video is probably going to be a little bit longer, so I'll try to put timestamps for each one that I go through. Some of these already have full videos for them, but I just wanted to kind of give you a rundown of the exact builds that I'm always using. And my armory very doesn't change very often. While we're on PvP, I did put together a Pugilist build, but personally, I don't want to drop the stun circle. Once I got used to using this thing, I think if you can get good with running the stun circle and using it to your advantage, it's one of the strongest tools a monk has. Now, maybe if you're a whale or you're really a heavy hitter, you would just go for a Pugilist build with kick in there, buff the kick maybe. use a couple other things, maybe shield a Zen, run speed, you know what I mean? And you got a couple other options if you go with the pugilist build. I tried to run it with my setup. I didn't find it as effective. If I wanted to try to play support, I wasn't really going to be able to delete anybody unless they were around my power level. If I got a good Mystic Strike in and then a good crit with the 7-sided, yeah, it would one-shot some people, but really only if they're around my power level. Or if I found like a whale or something that's about half health, I might be able to like strategically take them out that way. But with this setup, you're kind of talking about like certain situations, like very limited ones. With this one, it's a very solid general support build that works in a lot more situations. You might not be the MVP or top kills, but you might be. Once you if you can start to learn to use these skills the right way, it's definitely capable of that. And like I said before, I switched and lost 24% damage in life. I was getting a lot better performance out of all my builds in PvP. So the 7-sided strike build is pretty straightforward. You Mystic Strike in, and let me switch over to it first. It's a pretty straightforward build. Your main goal is just dropping that Mystic Strike on him and then hitting the 7-sided strike with the 57% increased damage. The problem with this one, you have a 10-second cooldown now. So if you miss with that, you're gonna have to go run and hide for 10 seconds. Now, if you did drop Stun Circle, you could have a couple more Mystic Strikes, a few kicks to try to take them out with the rest of it. So I can see where it could be useful there, and that's more than likely the route you're gonna want to go if you run this build. So you won't be really you wouldn't want to run Stun Circle with this build. At least that's from what I found. You want to really be focusing on dumping all your damage, and depending on the match, how the setup is, if you're fighting, like if you're on a team with 3-4 whales on each side and you're 3k around where I'm at, it's probably not going to be the ideal build. It will let you punch above your weight if you have as all damage, but I don't know, I feel like you're very vulnerable after that 7-sided strike without any cooldowns. But I've seen it used effectively by quite a few people. I just played with this other build so long that I feel like I got way more used to using the Stun Circle, kick, Mystic Strike, and using those skills. And I feel like they're strong enough where and there's a lot of setups like that in this game, at least for Monk, where like if you get good enough and comfortable enough with the skills that you're using, you're going to be more effective with that build than someone else is if they go and jump into it. And I probably didn't give Pugilist enough of a chance, but I don't want to drop the Stun Circle just because I got so used to using it and it's so powerful. That even being lower res against whales, they still get stunned. It still slows them down, and it will slow down the rest of their team. So it's just too useful for me not to use, I think, at least with where I'm at in the game personally. So the 7-sided build, I don't know if I would totally recommend it this way. I would probably swap out with like the kick buff and some other things, but I tried to run it with Stun Circle and just using Mystic Strike with the shoulders. And you could give it a shot and see what you think. I just don't want to drop Stun Circle, so I didn't really put all that much into it. The other one I want to talk about, I did a full video on, is the Challenge Rift build. This hasn't changed at all. The main thing for this... Oh man, I keep not changing to the build that I want to do. This is how I end up overriding builds that didn't mean to get overwritten. So here we go. Let's activate this one. I gotta wait for a cooldown. Hold on. There we go. This one's really straightforward. Right now, I don't even have the set bonuses in there because they don't matter too much when you're doing a CR. It was just for the highest combat rating I could get. And it's going to work better with your set bonuses because your dash is still going to give you a gloom buff, but you're also going to drop your tornado, Shimmerlin, and you're going to get crits from all of those. And then you're going to kind of kite around your tornado, and you're going to use Deadly Reach with a knockback on the 3rd hit. So I'll go through this build really quick because the essences are important. This helm, you want the bear head that does a exploding palm, has a 30% chance to detonate by any damage. The cyclone, I use the one that it might not do as much damage as the tornado, but I like that it impairs enemy vision. So when it's on the mobs that are in there, the melee mobs, it's harder for them to see you and hit you. So anything to not get hit in a challenge rift is going to be helpful. I use Shimmerlin to proc the the fire damage for the burn on the tornado to get the firestorm. Cyclone Strike damage reduction. You could probably get away with using maybe like Wave of Light range or some other things, but I like this one because it gives me, damage reduction is good in challenge rifts, and you could also run a 4-set urge and get an urge buff out of that as well for an extra proc if you have that. The main hand, I do Deadly Reach. Third strike at Deadly Reach is a knockback, and then I do the Leaping, Lost Frames, Exploding Palm. And Mystic Allies is there for like the boss fight and extra damage. You can also switch this out because it's not used with an essence, so you can use something different for like the first half of the rift if you want, and then when you get to the boss, use the Mystic Allies because it dumps some good damage on them. It's also nice to have them inside the Dust Storm so they're not getting hit as much. Obviously, because the enemies, the boss won't, I don't think, get affected as much by that, but the mobs will to keep them up longer. So what I usually do is Exploding Palm in, drop this, Shimmerlin, pop my allies, and they go wild in here, and I just kind of kite the mobs around the outside of my tornado, knocking them into it. And it seems to work very well. You can push a good bit above your, you know, a good bit into the challenge rift modifier. If you had more res and stuff like that, probably towards the 90% with this build. I know some monks that have done that. I can usually clear like 80% without any problem at all. Let's go over to this is the support build. And I've actually changed something in this recently that made it more effective for dungeons. I still need to try it in raids. Like, I'm going to try it in the gauntlet and see what kind of DPS I got, because that's another place we have a DPS meter now. Let me activate this one. I just did a full video on this. It's one of the last videos I put up, I think 2 videos ago. The other one is a modified version of this. But what I've been doing, so this one right here, I'll just show you really quick. You drop your blessing, your allies, 7-sided strike on your primary attack. So every primary attack pops a ally with it, or a 7-sided strike Mystic ally. And then you got this that procs your shoulders and your attack speed and all that from Mystic Strike. So I'll run through the essences with you really quick. You just want to keep the 7-sided strike up the whole time. It stays up for almost the entire full uptime. If you have a 2-set urge, you're down for like 1 second. So you use an Empathy's Blessing for the damage boost on your Sanctuary. You're using Sanctuary cooldown for the chest piece, the attack speed shoulders for 30%. You're using Mystic Strike Traveling, I think it's not Traveling Scold, it's the other one, but this is just raw damage from Mystic Strike, and it turns it into like a teleport type attack. And actually, maybe just pull it up here so I could give you the names. Empathy's Blessing, Disciplined Respite, Feline Defiance, Branding Bond is the name of the Mystic Strike pants. Tenebrous Grasp for the main hand, which gives you the 7-sided strike, and then Twitching Palm, which is just more damage off of your primary attack. Now, the nice thing is when you're doing single target damage, most of those Twitching Palm lightning slaps hit the single target. Now, what I was doing recently, I used this new main hand that we got, and this is the one I've been using for dungeons, and I'm going to be trying it in raids soon. Order Without Sin, your final strike of Fist of Thunder puts a ball lightning down. That it's basically like another Twitching Palm, but like a ball lightning version. I don't know if it'll actually proc without me connecting with it. Oh, there it is. So here's your ball lightning, so you get some extra. So that's doing damage. It's probably not quite the same amount as the 7-sided strike, but you get to drop the 7-sided strike and add in like another dash, and I put in kick, because even though it's not modified by an essence, I now have the gloom and speed buff from Mystic Strike, and then as Mystic Strike's running, or as my gloom buff's running out, I hit it with a kick, puts it up for another 4 seconds. And then the timer's out on both of them at 8 seconds, and I can rinse and repeat, and I can keep up gloom the entire time with it. So with that last build, I was feeling gloom and dash starved. Now, by switching to the new main hand instead of 7-sided strike and going with the kicks, I get pretty much gloom buff up 24/7, as well as 30% attack speed up 24/7. So I really like that combination together. And this is one of the builds. Actually, you know what? I'm going to actually overwrite this because I've been really enjoying this one. And you could even swap out Mystic Allies, but they do so much damage inside your buff circle. When you drop this guy, when this combo together is an absurd amount of extra damage, like good burst damage. And it's very noticeable. When all this stuff is active, you can see health like drastically decrease on the mobs. So yeah, there's that build. This is the new modifier that I've been working with the main hand switched out to the final strike gives you that ball lightning. What was the name of it? Order Without Sin. Yeah. So we got Empathy's Blessing, Discipline Respite, Feline Defiance, Branding Bond, Order Without Sin, and Twitching Palm. And this is the one I've been running basically for all my dungeon farming, and I'm gonna try it in raids again probably today on the reset, and see how it goes there. And we maybe will run another gauntlet or something. And then the final version is something, and I also will use this in Shadow War support, the build that I was just showing you. And then I made this build as a modifier for Shadow War main battle. And hold on one second, let me see. All right, so main battle, you want to be able to be mobile, and basically you'll Exploding Palm, you'll use the same main hand and Mystic Strike in. You're going to get all your same buffs here. You're going to get your attack speed buff from the shoulders. You're going to get Gloom buff from Reaching Rebuke because it turns your Exploding Palm into a dash. I use the Helm to get a third dash because in Shadow War, that guy's going to be moving around. You're not going to be able to kite him. So if you can land on him and you pop them with the 7-sided strike that detonates from the chest, Breath of Essence, 7-sided strike triggers the explosion. Now you don't need to kill the mob, and you don't need the 30% to proc it in the middle with other damage. You just use 7-sided strike to detonate your Exploding Palm. So if you're trying to chase down the idol, you can land on them, pop them with the 7-sided strike, it'll burst that, and then you can Mystic Strike through them, start dumping your attack speed and crit buff, and then you can kick through them and bring your Gloom buff back up, and then you Mystic Strike again, keep going, you got Gloom and attack speed, you kick to bring Gloom back up, and then you're never ending. By the time you keep cycling back and forth between these two, you have 30% attack speed and your crit buff at the same time, and then when you need to catch back up to the boss, Exploding Palm on it, 7-sided strike. So I really am interested to try this in Shadow War. I didn't get an opportunity to do that yet. I put this together specifically for that. But then I found it's fun as hell to run this build open world farming and even in dungeons as well. But with the setup and modifier of the last dungeon build, I felt dash starved. Now that I've added kick into this with the new main hand, I don't feel that way anymore. So I've been running this one a lot lately. But I like this one for open world farming still. I go out and do my contracts and dailies in this build usually. A lot of these builds with the new essences have been so fun to play around with that I don't mind going to the armory to switch just to run certain parts of the game just because it's really fun, lots of mobility. I always like having Mystic Strike and Kick together. I have these in my PvP builds. I have these in my farming builds, my dungeon builds, my raid builds. These two together are great. They're going to keep your Gloom buff up at all times. You get your extra attack speed out of your shoulders, and then you have your Urge combo for the beneficial effect duration, keeping up your Mystic Strike buff longer, your Gloom gem buff longer, your Bottled Hope buff longer, your Blessing of the Worthy debuff up longer, your shoulder buff up longer. All that stuff is helpful with the Urge 2 set. And then, I love crit. I love all these crit builds, and Gloom really helps with that. And if you have the dashes to keep the Gloom build up, or Gloom buff up, you're good to go. And when you have Kick and Mystic Strike, you can alternate and pretty much keep those buffs up 24/7. So it's basically like having Urge 4 set and Gloom 4 set at the same time is what it basically boils down to, and I try to fit that into as many builds as I can. I like the combination. It works really good with this new gem with primary attack damage. I'm also buffing primary attack damage with some of these other things, so it all works out really well. And that's the armory. I've had this armory decked out like this for the most part. The set PvP 7-sided strike build with Pugilist is the one I've used the least. I've always kind of had a floater here, but these are the main builds I've been playing around with for at least the last month or so. And I just wanted to make one final video going through the whole armory of all the ones that I actually use on a regular basis. There's a couple full videos on the other ones, but I figured I'd just do one final rundown. I'm about to go live after I post this video, about maybe like an hour afterwards. I'm only going to be live for a couple hours today. My buddy Dez is going to be running a stream, running a bunch of Rifties. I'm going to raid out to him when I'm done, and then during my stream, I'm going to switch over and go Crusader, and we'll start farming some essences. And then as I get the essences and start coming up with some builds, I'll put those together for you and post them here as well. I want to get a well-rounded idea of all the classes and all the essences and all the builds, and try to do as good of a job as I could with Monk for all these other classes. And hopefully you guys like those builds as well. Also, D4 Service Slam is this weekend, May 12th through the 14th. I'll be streaming a bunch of D4 over on Twitch. Link for all that stuff's down in the description. And then I'll also be streaming a bunch of D4 on launch weekend as well. So that's going to be it for me here. Like, subscribe, share, all the good stuff. Show your Monk friends. This is the rundown that I've been using lately. All these builds seem to be super effective. The only one I haven't got to test out on what I built it for was the Shadow War main build. If someone wants to give that a shot, I normally don't go to main battle because this support build, the last Shadow War I did with this build, I did like 18% in support or something like that. It was an astronomical amount of damage. It was a fast fight though, but it's a lot of burst damage. It works really good in there on tank and spank type fights. So I figured I was more effective doing that much damage in support than trying to risk it being mobile in main. But if you do have higher res, where you always want those higher res and higher power players in main battle anyway, even if their class isn't ideal for it, give this build a shot and let me know what you think, and report back in the comments. I'd love to hear how it goes. And then whenever I get an opportunity to try it again when I come back to Monk, because Monk's going to always be my home. So far I played Monk longer than any other class. It's so much fun, a high speed pace, and all the dashing and movement. It's gonna be a shell shocked experience going back to Crusader. I'm probably gonna be using that horse like nonstop, trying to move around to keep the movement speed up. But thank you guys for watching, and next time I see you, I'll probably be a Crusader. So I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.